This image has got a lot of publicity in the last few days. It's been taken by the James Webb Space Telescope, which is floating out about 1.5 million kilometers out in space. So if you imagine the line joining the sun to the Earth and you extend that by another 1.5 million kilometers, that's where the James Webb is hanging. It's the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope. So what does this image actually show? Well, what the telescope did was it looked at an empty patch of the sky, something like the grain, equivalent to a grain of sand, size of a grain of sand at arm's length, tiny bit of sky with no galaxies in at all, so it's completely empty. And it soaked up the light, the photons, for about 12 and a half hours. And this is the furthest, there are galaxies in this picture that are some of the furthest galaxies that we've ever seen. Now, galaxies are the kind of building blocks of our universe. There are something like 2 trillion of them, great islands of stars, of which our Milky Way is but one, with its 100 billion stars. So the first thing to say about this image is that when we look through a telescope, it's effectively a time machine. So when I sit at breakfast and I look at my wife at the other side of the kitchen table, I'm seeing her about a nanosecond in the past because I see her via the light that reflects off her face, and it takes that light about a nanosecond to cross the kitchen table. And we see everyone around us in the past, but it's because the speed of light is so great, we see them only a tiny fraction of a second in the past, and our brain processes, our processes of perception, can't discern intervals of time that small. So we have this illusion that there is a thing called the present, and that everyone around us, everyone on Earth, is living in the same now. But of course, when we look out across space, we look at the moon, for instance, we see it as it was 1.25 seconds ago. That's how long it has taken the light to get to us. It's literally impossible to know what the moon is like now, only what it was like 1.25 seconds ago. So in the universe is actually big, and light might be traveling very fast, but it crawls like a snail across these great stretches of space. So the nearest star, for instance, is a triple system called Alpha Centauri, and we see it as it was about 4 years ago, so in 2018. And the most distant object visible to the naked eye is the Andromeda galaxy, the biggest nearby galaxy. It's difficult to see, probably best to see from the southern hemisphere. And we see it as it was 2.5 million years ago. So when our ancestors were actually just living in Africa, living off an African plain, building using stone tools 2.5 million years ago. So we can't see the universe as it was now. So the galaxies in this image are all in the past. Now, the interesting thing about this image is that there is a cluster of galaxies in the middle, right? So that cluster of galaxies is relatively close to us. It's a big cluster of galaxies, and it acts like a lens. So light from more distant objects is bent around this galaxy cluster on its way to us, and it magnifies stuff which is even further away. So the genius of this image is it's not only using the James Webb telescope, which has got something like 6.5 times the collecting area of the Hubble Space Telescope, but it's combining that with nature's own lens, which is this giant cluster of galaxies. So what this natural lens does is it allows the James Webb telescope to see galaxies that are so far away that it couldn't in any other way see them. And you see these galactic images smeared out. If you look closely at this image, you'll see they're smeared out into arcs, distorted. And these galaxies, these distorted galaxies, are far beyond this cluster. And they are some of the most distant galaxies ever observed by human beings. Probably well, they almost certainly no longer exist because they are many, many billions of light years away, probably within a few 100 million years of the Big Bang itself. So the incredible thing about this image is that the distorted galaxies you see probably no longer exist. They probably lived and died before the Earth and Sun was born. But of course, their light has taken all this time to travel towards us. So it's given us a kind of after image of a universe that no longer exists. But that's the brilliance of astrophysics and our universe. We cannot know what it is like now because of the speed of light, because it takes a long time for light to come from a distant object. But what nature takes away with one hand, it gives us back with another. So as we look out at successively greater distances, we look back further and further in time. So what astronomers are actually doing is pretty similar to what archaeologists do. So archaeologists dig down through the earth, and at deeper levels, they find older civilizations. And astronomers are doing the same thing. They're digging back or drilling back down, back through look back time to the beginning of the universe. And what they're particularly interested in is the time when the first stars switched on. So after the Big Bang was this fireball, and out of it expanded and cooled, and of course, all the galaxies congealed out of the cooling debris, including our Milky Way. But the Big Bang fireball faded, first of all, faded into invisibility. And the universe was plunged into darkness. We call it the cosmic dark age. And the universe doubled in size, it doubled again, all in total darkness. But in the darkness, matter was congealing, gravity was clumping material together. And then there came a time which we haven't seen yet, which the James Webb may get us to see, a time when the first stars switched on all over the universe, like lights on a Christmas tree. So that's the missing jigsaw piece of cosmic history. Another thing quickly to tell you about the universe you're seeing, or those smeared galaxies, they existed in a universe much smaller than our universe. So the universe has been expanding in the aftermath of the Big Bang, and that means that the universe was smaller in the past. And as the universe expands, it actually stretches the light coming from these objects. So as the light's traveling to us, it gets stretched. And if you imagine a wave being stretched out to longer waves, that shifts the light to what we call the red end of the spectrum. And in fact, beyond that, into infrared. So these galaxies are no longer visible with the naked eye because the stretching of their light as the universe has expanded has shifted that into the invisible infrared light. And so the James Webb Telescope is sensitive not to visible light, but to infrared light, and will show up these kind of galaxies. And that's why its mirror is made of hexagonal segments, and they are gold in color. And the reason for that is that gold reflects infrared light. Anyway, so what's so wonderful about this picture is that we are seeing basically galaxies at the dawn of time.